My father didn't just tell me not to come home for my mom's birthday. He told me if I showed up, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. Not because I did something wrong. Not because we argued. But because my sister's boyfriend was coming. And apparently, I wasn't the kind of person they wanted standing next to him. He said it plainly. Like it was obvious. Like it was something I should have understood without him having to explain it. You'll embarrass the family. I remember standing there in my apartment, phone still pressed against my ear, trying to process how that sentence even made sense. I had already taken time off work. Already planned everything. Already intended to come home early like I always did. Not because I had to, but because I thought that's what being part of a family meant. Showing up, helping out, being there without being asked. And somehow, in one conversation, all of that meant nothing. What made it worse wasn't just what he said. It was how easily he said it. Like I had already been replaced a long time ago, and this was just him finally admitting it out loud. And that's when something in me shifted. Because if you've ever realized you were never actually part of the place you kept showing up for, you know how quiet that moment feels. This wasn't the first time I had been made to feel like I didn't belong. It just felt different because this time, they didn't even try to hide it. Growing up, my sister Jessica was always the center of everything in our family. Every conversation somehow circled back to her. Every achievement she had was celebrated like it was a milestone for all of us. And every problem she faced became something everyone had to solve together. I wasn't exactly ignored, but I was never really included either. I was there, just not in a way that mattered. If I did well in school, it was acknowledged with a quick "that's good" before the focus shifted back to her. If I needed something, it usually came after everything she wanted was already taken care of. Over time, I stopped asking. Not because I didn't need anything, but because I already knew where I stood. I became the easy one. The one who didn't complain, didn't demand attention, didn't create problems. And that role followed me into everything. Family events, decisions, even conversations. I learned to step back before anyone had to ask me to. And the more I adapted to that position, the more permanent it became. No one questioned it, because for them, it worked. And for a long time, I convinced myself it was fine, that this was just how things were. Until the moment they made it clear I wasn't just less important. I was optional. That role didn't just stay in childhood. It followed me into adulthood and turned into something I didn't even realize I had agreed to. About 2 years ago, my mom called me one evening and started talking about how expensive everything had become. How their income wasn't stretching as far as it used to. How bills were starting to pile up. She didn't ask directly, but she didn't need to. I understood what she was implying, so I stepped in. At first, it was supposed to be temporary. Just a few months until things stabilized. But those months turned into a year, and that year turned into 2. Every single month, without fail. I covered their electricity, water, and internet. Around $400, automatically deducted from my account. I didn't remind them. I didn't mention it. I didn't expect anything in return. I just kept doing it. Quietly. Consistently. Like it was my responsibility to make sure everything in their house kept running. And what stayed with me wasn't the money. It was the fact that no one ever acknowledged it. Not once. It wasn't appreciated. It wasn't questioned. It just became expected. And every time I asked if Jessica was helping too, there was always an excuse waiting. She's busy. She'll help later. She has other priorities right now. But later never came, and I let it go every time. Because I told myself that's what being a good son meant. You don't keep score. You don't ask for fairness. You just do what needs to be done. But if you've ever given and given until it became invisible, you already know the moment it stops feeling like kindness and starts feeling like obligation. If you've ever realized you were only valued for what you provided, you know exactly why this was the point everything started to change. For the next few weeks, nothing happened. No follow-up call. No message to explain what he said. No attempt to fix anything. It was like that conversation never existed. Like I had already been erased from whatever version of the family they were continuing without me. And that silence told me more than anything else could have. Because if someone can say something like that and then just move on, it means they meant it. Completely. During that time, I went back to my normal routine. Work. Meetings. Daily life. Everything looked the same on the outside. But something had shifted underneath it. I stopped thinking about what I should do for them. Stopped asking myself if I should still show up. Stopped trying to justify their behavior in ways that made it easier for me to accept. For the first time, I just watched it for what it was. And the clearer it became, the harder it was to ignore. Because I realized something I had been avoiding for years. It wasn't that I hadn't done enough. It was that nothing I did was ever going to change how they saw me. And once that thought settled in, everything else became simple. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to explain. I didn't need closure from them. I already had it. So when the date of my mom's birthday got closer, I didn't make plans to go back. I didn't reach out. I didn't check in. I just let it happen the way they wanted it to happen. Without me, and for the first time in a long time, that didn't feel like loss. It felt like clarity, because if they didn't want me there, then they were going to find out what that actually meant. On the day of my mom's birthday, everything went exactly the way it always did. The house was full. Relatives gathered. Food prepared. Conversations flowing like nothing had ever changed. The only difference was that I wasn't there. And for a while, that didn't seem to matter. Not until things started to break. It began in the late afternoon. The power went out first. Just suddenly. Without warning. At first, they probably thought it was a temporary issue. Something that would come back on in a few minutes. But it didn't. Then the water stopped running. No explanation. No slow decline. Just gone. And finally, the internet cut off completely. On a B1, everything they had quietly depended on disappeared at the exact moment they needed it most. That's when my phone started ringing. My mom first. Then my dad. Then Jessica. Calls stacked on top of each other. Followed by messages that came faster than I could read them. The power's out. We can't cook. Guests are already here. What's going on? And then the one that said everything. Fix it. I sat there, looking at the screen, not surprised. Not confused. Just aware. Because I knew exactly what had happened. 3 weeks earlier, right after that call, I had gone into my banking app and canceled every single automatic payment. Electricity, water, internet, all of it. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The same way I had been paying them all along. And now, for the first time, they were feeling what it was like when I stopped. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish them, but because there was nothing left to explain. And for the first time, I wasn't the one fixing everything. The calls didn't stop. If anything, they got more desperate. Messages kept coming in, one after another, shifting from confusion to frustration, then to blame, but I didn't answer any of them. Not because I was trying to prove a point, but because for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for fixing something they had taken for granted. Then my aunt called me on video, and this time, I picked up, not to explain, but to see. The moment the screen connected, I could feel the tension on the other side. People moving around, voices overlapping. The kind of quiet chaos that happens when something important goes wrong at the worst possible time. And then I saw him. My sister's boyfriend. The same person they didn't want me standing next to. He looked at the screen, paused for a second, and then his expression shifted into recognition. "Hey, boss," he said, without hesitation. The room went completely silent. Not confused. Not questioning. Just stunned. He explained it himself. Clearly. Directly. That he worked at my company. That I was one of the founders. No one interrupted him. No one corrected him. Because there was nothing to correct. And in that moment, everything flipped. The same people who thought I was an embarrassment didn't even know how to look at me anymore. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't remind them of anything they had said. I just looked at the screen and said calmly, "Hope the party works out." Then I ended the call. And just like that, it was over. Not because they finally understood me, but because I finally understood them. If you've ever realized your value was invisible until you stopped giving it away, you know exactly why walking away isn't loss, it's control.